So we've taken our box now. We've got it in a 0, 0, 0 point, and we can rotate it and we can scale it. Ultimately, you know, we might not want it in the 0, 0 point. We might want to move it around. So, being an American program, it naturally thinks in feet and inches. So, before the decimal point is feet, and afterwards is inches. So, if you want to move it by 6 feet and 3 inches, I might just do that. If I want to lift it up by 12 feet 4, I might type it in like this. And then inches symbol afterwards. So it's not very good if you're not used to working with metric and imperial. However, there is a reprise. You can type it in meters. So if I now want to move it back by 3.6 meters, I'll type in 3.6 and then put an M afterwards. Now it has moved 3.6 meters. If I want to move it 20 meters up, put an M, it suddenly jumps up. So to start with, you see it thinks it in feet. So first it's thinking you're moving it 20 inches. Then you put in your rem and it's changed to meters. So that's how you move something around. The only downside is if I do that again, once I click off this object, I go back to it, it's converted it back to feet and inches again. So you have to remember what you've set everything to. Or this is where your handy app and your phone comes in. You convert that and it tells you what the meters were. Well, let's just finish this tutorial up by inserting some more objects into our space here. So let's go back to our add objects. We've got some people here. People are quite good. I quite like female standing. It's quite a generic person. And you start to get a scale of the space. It's quite a large room. Keep clicking and put a few people in, and here they all appear. Female standing. Now if I can select it, I can rename it to let's call it singer. I can turn them on or off. I don't actually need her. And I can set her position. So there we can see quite clearly where the base point on the stage is. She's been set to 0, 0, 0. So now she's at the front. And all I can suggest here really is you just go through and have a look at all the different objects that have been created for you. Vision have been quite good at creating a wide range of objects that could cater for most situations. So select our teapot and we can try scaling it up. We've got a giant teapot now sitting on our stage. Now if we look at our teapot a bit more closely, it's a good example of a good way to demonstrate our scene graph. Now as I open it up, you can see it's got a few elements here. It's got a transform node, which is a name for the move symbol, followed by a material node, followed by another transform node, and a mesh node. If we start at the very end, the mesh node makes up the actual geometry that's built inside this. If we turn that off, we'll lose the entire object. None of these mean anything without the mesh node. But we can actually set other controls here. These here make a colour changing object out of this. If I select true, this turns it on. And I can set how many candelas I want this to be running at. So let's try 3000. And now that's our R, G and B channel, all set at universe 1, address 1. And my iron's still set up. If I select dimmer 1, I can control that on my Python desk via DMX control. I can try setting red to 1, green to 2, blue to 3. I have individual control of all 3 colours. So then I can have a go at doing a bit of colour mixing as well. So that's quite good if you've got set and you want to try and make it change colour and glow. Click it again, turn it off, it goes back to normal. Now here I have a transform node, which is exactly the same as this one. You don't have to worry about transform nodes that are built as part of the object, because that's part of the construction process of making this object. It's part of Vision's makeup and how they actually make the products. So you may one day have a rare situation to play around with that, but I doubt it will ever happen. The material node, on the other hand, is quite useful. First of all, you can change the colour of the object. It's very similar to selecting the illuminating colours, except this is actually physical colour of the object. Now it's set to 0.2, that's 20% red, green and blue. So obviously because they're all set the same, it's on the scale of white, because if you mix RGB together you get perfect whites in theory. And being at 20% means that it's a very dark white, so in other words grey. So if I set this to 1, we'll go red, we'll go yellow, and blue goes white again, but a much brighter white. So I could, if I wanted to, set this back to 0 and 0, and now I've got a red teapot, and that's the actual material colour, as opposed to this, which was more of an intensity. See the difference there. Now maybe I don't want this to be set to a colour, maybe I actually want a texture or an effect. But if you go into a texture menu, you can actually open up our dialog and select any image file we want to be able to wrap around this object. Now again, I'd recommend doing this in an external program, but it is possible to select a picture file to add into this. Let's see if I have a picture file that I can use. Let's take maybe one of our colour file, attachments. I should have prepared something earlier, shouldn't I? What are my pictures here? Sample pictures. Chrysanthemum, there we go. So there you go. We can see chrysanthemum has appeared as a texture on that object. Now, as I said, in theory you do this in an external program, but it's possible that the texture has been removed somehow. It's accidentally been lost at some point when you've been moving it between computers. You still have the physical file, but this reference here, where it's looking for the picture, has changed and it can't find it anymore. So you might want to come in here and reselect it for later. So that's an option as well. And then once you go back to the Vision Transform node, that's where you selected all the features about where it sits in the space. So we're back to the beginning again now. And if you want to create more of these, you can click back on the root menu and right click. You can add more nodes. You see you can add a transform node, which looks exactly the same as one of these. So I've got a transform node there which has movement controls. So I can click and drag with the left click. I can move that into my transform node. And then I'll have more controls again, so I can scale it again. So this has applied a scale factor in addition to the scale factor that was applied to the one underneath it. See here it's added it up to 20, because this was being set to 2 and originally it was set to 10, so it's multiplied up to 20. If I set that back to 10, that's still at 2, go back to 20 again. So this takes control of all objects underneath it. I can move my singer into that node as well. So now I've got both of those in this node. So this means if I wanted to turn both those off together, they're part of the same node. I can add a lighting fixture into it. So there's a way of doing a bit of filing as well. If you wanted to organise your lights into groups, I'll use transform nodes. You have ordinate nodes, which is simply a folder. I mean, this might be a bit more sensible if you just want to get rid of something. And this is simply on and off. I tend not to use these because they don't give as much option as a transform node. Now, a DMX transform node comes up red, and it's exactly the same, except it gives you options to control those movements with DMX. So actually you can set a universe and a channel, an address, and tell it to move by 5 meters. When you scroll that up, it will actually move. So if I enable this, let's make sure I do this right. I want to move in the direction of height. I can set that to be 3 meters. And when I lift up just 1, oh yeah, that's right, I've actually got to move my node inside that one. And there we have some movement control. So we can actually set height and size. I'll go into more detail on this in another presentation, because there's issues like speed, pivots. Pivots are very important when we're doing rotate commands. So there's a lot more to it than just what I've shown you there, but just to give you an idea. We can have material nodes if you want to add more textures, but you never really need to use these if you build it all right properly in the first place. So you can see actually you can get all these individual objects and build your own fixture if you think you can manage it. The information can all be provided, but it's something that is really for more advanced users. So that's the scenery elements of Vision. I've touched on some camera controls there, so you can move yourself around the object, the add object command, and how we can use the scene graph and the properties menu to take control of our objects in a sort of sub-level situation where we can go right in and select individual elements of our objects, so to get some more fine control of our scene.